Welcome back. So we're looking at the next item on the agenda, if I may put it that way. It's talk time. A recent investigation by an online publication, Economic Confidential, has shown that 15 states may go bankrupt as their internally generated revenues, IGR, in 2015 were far below 10% of their federation account allocations in 1 year, from June 2015 to May 2016.
The report comes as the federal government moves to roll out another round of bailout for distressed states. Most of these states have been unable to pay worker salaries for more than 3 months now, despite the first round of bailout given to them last year.
Now, this has also called to question on how they spent the first round of bailout without paying salaries, while they expect the second round. For how long will these states continue to run to the federal government for help?
Well, the finance minister says it is not a bailout. Let's listen to her.
This is a loan that we have secured from private sector, and it has conditions attached to it. So it's actually a loan that is going to be repaid. It's not a bailout. The amount of the loan is 50 billion for 3 months to be shared across all the participating states, which are all 36 so far, and then 40 billion for 9 months. The idea is to tide states over for a year so that they can rebalance their portfolio, which is on average about 1.3 billion per state, I believe, for the first 3 months, and 1.1 for the next 9 months. It's a loan and it's fully repayable, although it has been securitized against future dividends, revenues, and any amounts that federal government may owe the states. Of course, we're not suspending the federation account. Federation account will still be there, but if we expect the federation account to recover, and then as it recovers, we will withdraw the need for this support. But for now, we need to support the states. They've agreed to these conditions, and the lenders have therefore agreed to make an advance to them.
A developmental economist, Joe Femi Dagunro, joins us right here in the studio. Good morning, and thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Let me ask you that question then. For how long will the government continue to bail out the states? How long should this continue? Is this sustainable?
The same question I would have loved to ask, because, I mean, if we are beginning to say bailout is different from a loan, and it's temporary, it's for a period of time, maybe 9 months, 4 months, or whatever. What about the past one? Have they paid? Was that a bailout-free money? Or it is something that will have to be paid at a later stage? We have to begin to restructure the states. We have to begin to see there was a budget. There was a budget, and this budget was passed by the state legislature. And then they must have seen that, look, something is wrong. Most of the states, that means they're running a deficit budget. And then if you're running a deficit budget, you should be able to say a time frame where you will be able to analyze and tell the people this is when. Don't forget that some of these states, they have gone to the market as well. They have loans, or they have people who have taken their bonds and they can't pay. So a lot of problems are on the ground. So it's not just the federal government. The federal government has to bail out these states, no doubt about that. Unfortunately, we don't have any law. I'm not a lawyer though, but I don't think we have the bankruptcy law that takes care of this. Otherwise, people will begin to ask so many questions. I wonder who are the private people or private sector loan givers that have given the federal government this loan.
The second one.
Yes.
Yeah,
but
this is meant to be sourced from the bond market. But,
yes.
but while you were talking, something just kept ringing in my mind. You know that there are deductions at the end of the month, even from the federal allocation that the states get. They had authorized deduction that the CBN makes, for instance. And if these deductions are there, if they get this bailout, it becomes an authorized deduction. That means at the end of the month, something must be taken from the allocation to service this loan, either long-term tenors or how many tranches. Something must be taken out of it. So more depletion in the revenue allocated to the state. Is it kind of a patting somebody in the head at the end of the day, hitting the person back on the other side of the head?
You said it all, because you take part of these at the end of the month, and they come back after 6 months and say, we don't have anything again. So this is just a merry-go-round thing. You know, they will keep coming back. The point is this: what are these states or the state governors, what are they doing with what they generate? How far can they generate money to even meet the demand, their recurrent expenditure. You know, you are saying Lagos State has been able to do so fine. Yes, not all the states can be compared to Lagos State.
I mean, let me give you the example of Yobe, for example.
Yes.
Yobe made only 2.2 billion naira compared to 57.4 billion it received from the Federation account. I mean, how do you...
That's what I'm saying. You know, it's good to say that you can't compare Lagos State and some of these states with Zamfara, Yobe, Kebbi, and all the other states at the bottom. But the point is this: we have to have dedicated leaders. The governors have to be dedicated and to have to be creative at the same time. Because most of them, to be candid, they're just waiting for this monthly stipend coming in. I mean, otherwise, how many people do you want to tax out there to really generate so much? So we have to begin to prioritize. We have to begin to say, look, how are we going to fund the states? It is not a new thing in the world. In the US, you have some states that are bankrupt as well. No doubt about that. But people want to know, how do you restructure? How are you going to pay back the loans? You know, you have to think about so many other things that this government have to be involved. The schools, the universities, and the health sector. And you have to think about the pensioners who will not be paid. So there are a lot of problems on the ground. And this is why we have to begin to tame this and begin to know who are the kind of leaders that have to be there to take over.
And can you even talk about, you know, restructuring this debt and talking about paying back without giving a good account of that loan, no matter how small it is in the first place?
This is the first thing I said. Let us find out what causes that. What was the cost of these bad loans or bad management? I mean, if it's a private company, you begin to say, look, let's appoint, let's do a kind of forensic audit of the state itself. And this is where I said, what is the role, or what are the roles of the people sitting down there as legislators and say, look, you just bring the budget, we don't need to know, to ask a question about the past, or why is it deficit, why is it surplus? We just stamp it and say, go ahead. And you want to take a loan, or you want to go into the market, we just say, go ahead and take X amount of billion. And you come back and you discover that most of these things, the money you have actually said you want to do, you want to take to do some projects are not. Why should some state go and execute projects of airport, for instance? So you begin to see that mismanagement is part of what is going on.
Probably we'll come back to that. All right.
Yes, let's go deeper into these issues right now. An analysis of the IGRs of states against their Federation account allocations indicates that 15 states of the Federation are on the verge of bankruptcy, like you already heard.
The analysis made by an economic intelligence magazine shows that the IGRs of the states in 2015 were far below 10% of their federal account allocations from June 2015 to May 2016, indicating that the states may go bankrupt and not stay afloat outside the federal account allocation due to lack of foresight in revenue generation drive. Now, let's take it a step further.
Now, the National Bureau of Statistics in a recent report revealed that 36 states of the Federation generated about 682.7 billion naira as IGR in the 2015 fiscal year. The report showed that Lagos State generated the highest IGR of 268.2 billion naira, followed by Rivers State with 82.1 billion. That's a distant second, and Delta with 40.8 billion naira. Ogun State 34.59 billion naira, and Edo State 19.11 billion naira.
All right. It further indicated that the IGR of Lagos State of 268 billion naira is higher than that of 32 states combined, excluding Rivers, Delta, Ogun, and of course Edo State, whose IGRs are very impressive.
Okay, let's even just put that on hold. Lagos State has an IGR that is more than 32 states combined. Right. Yes, we know that Lagos has the population. The market is massive and all of that. But what is Lagos doing right that some of these states can actually, take a cue from?
I think one of the things I've said is management and prioritization. You have to prioritize your projects. You have to know what to do. I mean, you can as well generate IGR that is more than the whole Nigeria and you still mismanage it and you still mess it up. So you have to prioritize those projects. What are those things you want to do? Take, for instance, the gentleman, the governor of Lagos State said, look, I'm going to have the fourth mainland bridge, but it's going to be a PPP thing. I'm going to sign an MOU with these people to do it. I'm going to do so many things, but these are the ways. You line them up and you begin to tell even the masses or the public that these are the things, these are the ways.
That's for Lagos State. Yes. So imagine that's for Lagos State. Right. Imagine a state like Zamfara, for instance, wanting to come up with such a project.
Right.
Bearing in mind what's the allocation that goes to them, bear in mind the IGR they are able to generate in a year, for instance. How would a state like that compare itself with Lagos?
First of all, that you can't compare that. I said
no
that, but the point is, if look at what can we do well in Zamfara State? There must be something that can be done well. If it's agriculture,
within their
let's
own
find out. Okay, yeah,
peculiarities.
exactly. Let's say this is agriculture. We want to plant this. We want to do this. If it's cattle rearing, if it is breeding of animals, whatever, find out something that is good, that is peculiar, that you can do well, and go for it. And you said, okay, within the next 5 years, this is what we want to do, or these are what we want to do. Until you have to begin to pick on those things that are very good in your state and what you can invest in. And I mean, that's why I'm saying there's no point for a state to say, look, I want an helicopter. The governor wants an helicopter. I mean, all those
another state
has got an helicopter. So you can't compare Lagos State. And Lagos State, what is it doing now? You see, we don't have so much land. We are going to Kebbi to start planting rice. We will just bring that. You see, you are investing even in another state. I wonder what this governors forum is all about. I think the governors forum should be able to say, let us strategize. What's good in your state? What is good in my state? Let us link up. Let us. It's not just to fight one another. They should be able to strategize and be more creative in some of these things. It is about restructuring the country. Listen, the federal government will not sit there and just allow the states to go bankrupt or to go bust. It will affect the whole country. So what we'll begin to see is the management. The federal government has to even give them this loan and monitor them. If you are giving this loan, what are you going to do with it?
Of course, this second loan is coming with some 22
restrictions.
or so.
But you can see that a lot of them, with all the conditions laid down, many of them have said, "Oh, we've made the conditions. We are going in for it." So it's like, look, no matter what they do, we will get this money. Election is coming in some state. They're going to mess up this money again. I mean, you know that sometimes these politicians, they just take advantage and do things with the federal government. They just know that federal government will come to our rescue. For goodness sake, I don't want people from other states to begin to say, we cannot, you can't do it, but you just have to be creative. You have to know what you have to do. You have to know how to do it right, and you have to go for it. But the federal government, and I think maybe there should be a law to monitor some of these things. People just say security vote. Security vote has been messed up in a way that you can't even ask anybody what security vote. And look, it is not right for most of these governors to keep having their own pensions as well and to keep having all these luxuries when they know that people cannot be paid. And so we have to begin to structure this country and we have to begin to structure the state. I think that's the most important thing. It is not just to say, give them loan, let them go ahead. What are you going to do with the loan and how far can you go with it? And if after 3 months you can't come back and tell us something, well, maybe the state, the governor has to be taken out of the place and pitched or something.
All right, so let's bring you further. Let's go deeper into the... All right, the states with the lowest IGR in 2015 are Ebonyi, a state with 0 IGR, followed by Yobe State with 2.2 billion, and Zamfara with 2.7 billion, Ekiti with 3.2 billion, and Borno with 3.5 billion naira.
Ridiculous.
Is it possible that a state can actually have zero IGR?
Honestly speaking, if you ask my own personal opinion, that governor should be impeached. How dare you tell the people that 0 IGR? Are you sleeping?
That means this state is not doing any form of business.
That means the state does not exist. I mean, it's 0 IGR. Listen, that means the state does not exist. And we shouldn't even, I mean, there are things we have to be passionate about. When we are passionate about our country, we have to take it beyond what state do you come from or where. I mean, I can't imagine that. Do you tell me there are no shops in Ebonyi State? There are no shops.
They're not paying taxes. And if you look at the period under review, it's 2015. At least it wasn't
May 2015
to things weren't this as bad as it was then. So sometimes things weren't this as bad as it was then. So sometimes I think salaries were still being paid then. So were there no taxes from the civil servants?
That's what I'm asking. I mean, that means the state does not exist. You know, and then what happened in the past years? What has the past governor, what has he been doing? You know, the present governor has got to look into that and say, listen, if there's a 0 IGR in the past, what are you coming there to do? You know, so if you begin to look at it in a very sensible way, you begin to understand something is wrong. We have to do a forensic audit of all the states.
You know, a state like Ebonyi, for example, that has the, famous Abakaliki rice.
Right.
If it were to concentrate on rice alone, or even Ekiti that has bitumen awash, I mean, that state is awash with bitumen and other mineral, resources. Why do the states, is it justifiable that the states have this kind of IGR that they're bringing in?
I think it's about the leadership. You know, even if it's a company, when you have a managing director and his team that is not creative, that is not focused, you have this kind of situations coming out. The Ebonyi State, like you said, what stops them and try to say, look, we need foreign investors or local investors that will come into that place and take over some of these mills or whatever they have done before. And I tell you what, if you go to some of these states, you see dilapidated companies. You see companies that have been, being there and non-existence again, and people are just roaming around. They've turned the whole place to a mess. But let me tell you, even in that state, the National Union of Road Transporters, I believe they are making more money daily. You know, if you say you don't make money, go to the motor park. Those guys there must be making money every day. How dare you tell the world that you don't make money? Something must be wrong. And I think the whole thing is that the Minister of Finance must invite that governor or must send his people to that place and revamp that Ministry of Finance or Ministry of all the state must be. I mean, because if you keep giving this money every month, this gentleman, whoever that is there and his team, they will continue to mess up the money. This money belongs to all of us. And whatever they share at the end of the month has to be properly managed. I wouldn't believe that's a good, if that's a humor, I mean, that's not a good sense of humor.
Those calling for restructuring of the country, that's part of the reason they're saying so. Some states can't even stay afloat. Otherwise, instead of just accruing money, spending government money, perhaps merge with some other smaller states or larger states and make one region.
And then, of course, there's a talk about fiscal federalism, that this will solve
subscribe to that.
This problem.
That might be a solution at the end of the day. If a state cannot generate 1 naira, then why don't you merge the state with another one that can really manage both states? After all, they were created out of a state before.
In the first place.
So if we now know that these are not vibrant, these are not viable states, for goodness sake, let's go back to status quo.
Ebonyi, for instance, came out of Enugu State, and from the statistics we have, Enugu is not doing that badly.
Right.
So perhaps merging might not be a bad thing after
That's
all.
what I'm saying. If they're carved out of Enugu State and Enugu is doing well, we have to now, try to see, can we merge it? And the thing is,
and latest reports, of course, say that the president might just be considering merging this 15 states.
But the president alone cannot do it.
He can't do it alone.
So that is why the executive power will not allow that to just wake up and say, listen, merge the state. You have a process to do that. But in between that period, you have people representing Ebonyi State in the House of Rep, in the Senate. So now, what are those guys talking about their state? Are they not going back there? Don't these guys have what they collect every month as well to develop their areas and what they normally collect? What have they been doing with that? They don't meet with their ministers and their governors to say, look, this is
and
shame.
their representatives.
Yes.
Okay, let's continue and bring you what the situation is with some other states. Other states that are likely to go bankrupt are Kebbi, Taraba. Of course, Kebbi has the Argungu Fishing Festival.
Right.
All right, Taraba, that's tourism right there.
Yeah, yes,
okay.
You see, when you talk about those Argungu Festival, are we promoting tourism in the right sense of that? How many people have been traveling from Lagos or from Oyo State to say, listen, I'm going for this festival? You see, when we begin to think about tourism, I think most people think we should bring people from Germany, Italy, and everyone. What about you have to promote tourism locally as well? But nobody is trying to, let me say, it's not well promoted that people would take holidays, 2 or 3 days, and say, look, I'm going for this festival. So when we begin to look at tourism as if the white guys have to come and boost our tourism, we're making
do you
a big
even know
mistake.
there's nothing substantial about that tourism on the 2016 budget? From what we heard, there's going to be a supplementary budget for that. That means, does that really say something about the...
I think the best thing is this, and that's why I mentioned this word governors forum. If the governors forum, if these governors, if they have to come together truly, and if they have their states in mind, they will look at this carefully, and they will look at this kind of report and begin to think of it.
Okay, let's move on. There's Taraba. I've had the opportunity of driving through, Taraba, beautiful state with, beautiful tourist sites. Okay, so there's Nasarawa, very close to Abuja there. Adamawa, Gombe, Jigawa, Bauchi, Imo, Katsina, Niger, and Sokoto. The latest report on IGR reveals that only Lagos State generated more revenue than its allocation from the Federation account by 150%.
Taraba even has one of these companies lately is we're looking at some of the companies around and what can be done. Do you know Taraba has a very good environment? You know, you can get people to build resorts into that place. People will come around. And you have a place, they have a company that produces tea, this Highland tea. You know, and some of the time we're looking at it, we can't even have this tea in Lagos. I don't know whether you have seen Highland tea and all that. And we import a lot of teas. These tea that are imported into this country, we don't even need, with that alone, you can sustain part of. If you really develop this and build hotels around that place, resorts and people golf resorts and all that, it's just for the governors to begin to be proactive and think seriously about what to do before they get there. I think most of these people, you know, they just get there because they want to be governors and they don't know what it is. You know, but when they get there, they say, okay, look, I can do this, I can do that. If you get brilliant guys to be governors of this country, you know, governors of the states, you will see something will be turned around.
To be real chief executives.
I'm telling you, you will turn around things. I'm not afraid when you hear something like this. It is not a big deal, but it is just that get the right people to manage. And the people of those states should begin to look at it. If you can't do it, we get you out of that place until when you have that movement.
Yeah, when people call for the Senate President to resign on moral grounds, perhaps the state governors should toe that line where you cannot pay its salaries, you cannot make your state stay afloat, you have no business being there.
And then you have no,
NLC.
yes, you can say if you can't pay all this and you have no other options or you have no ways to come and tell us within the next 6 months, these are the things I want to do. If your company is not doing well, it is not just to sack everybody that's the answer. You say, okay, I want to, you know, downsize or right size, whatever name you call it, but you'll be able to tell your investors, if I downsize or right size, then these are the things I want to achieve. And I want to put this one. Even sometimes you sell out some stake. You can sell out some of these houses you've built, you know, wasting away somewhere. Sell out some of these things.
Well,
so
the federal government, the federal government
cannot be absorbed of the she has raised alarm at the level of waste, you know, that goes on. And the same finance minister is talking about borrowing money to actually, you know, give loans to this states. Like is that sound economics?
Like I said, the federal government has to come into this, and that's why I told you that it happened as well.
No, borrow money to pay salary even at the federal level. And I remember when Kemi Adeosun had an interview on a particular TV station, blamed Okonjo-Iweala for doing that, but that is what is going to happen now, according to her, that the former administration borrowed money to pay salary, right? Okay, now she's saying the federal government has to borrow money to pay salary.
Yes, we have to ask the question, if the federal government has to borrow money to pay salary, then she should be able to tell us for what, for how long. And then she should be able to tell us that, listen, if you borrow money to pay salary for 6 months, in anticipation of what we will get from all these drives we are making. You are making drives, people are paying back, AFCC is, you know, picking up people left and right, they are paying back some money. You should be able to tell us. You see, there's nothing wrong. You know, all over the world, people borrow money to do one thing or the other. It's unfortunate that even while it's thinking of borrowing money to pay salary.
But for capital projects, not for recurrent.
Yes, let's look at it this way. This is a peculiar situation.
No, recurrent expenditure.
Exactly.
And the deficit that Nigeria has recorded in the first quarter, majority of the bulk of it has to do with recurrent expenditure.
Yes, but this is the same system that if you say you want to downsize, I have said it several that our civil servant, it's just we have a bloated civil servant. You know, can we now say, okay, let's get them downsized or let's get them pushed out? No, somebody will come out and say, no, you don't sack them. There's a commission there for life. And these are the things we have to be realistic about, some of these things. This is what is happening in most of the states, in most of the local government, and even at the federal level. It's a shame for us to say we want to borrow money to continue to pay salary. But then if you say in anticipation that within the next 4 months we'll stop it, then I will say, okay, do it for 4 months and then get yourself on track. If that is the mess we have made.
All right, let's move on even further. The IGR of the 36 states of the Federation totaled 682.67 billion naira in 2015 as compared to 707.85 billion in 2014, a drop of 25.18 billion naira. The report showed that while some states recorded a decline in revenue when compared to 2014, others were able to shore up their revenue base within the 2015 fiscal period.
All right, this is perhaps, does this have anything to do with the fiscal and the monetary policy? Does it affect
you see, I think this is something that you have to look at. If you have a good team, right, even if you are not a good economist, you are not a good accountant, but if you have a good team, and if you are sincere about the management of the state, you can surely look at, I mean, like this states, Ebonyi State is still something that we shouldn't joke about. Zero. I mean, if you put any simple person to run that place who has the knowledge of management, you will be able to generate. So if I'm generating 200 million, and I know that the next year I have to generate more because my expenses are rising.
Exactly.
I have an option. Cut my expenses and maintain a level that I don't need to have headache. But the point is this, you see, when the thing is going up, most of our governors at the same time, they now continue to load more these expenses. So now, if everybody has to say, look, what is the point of all of us having 5 cars? Then let's not have 5 cars.
Now, beyond that, does federal government have some level of culpability here? That many states have actually taken on projects that actually the federal government should be, handling. And there's a lot of domestic debt is very high.
Yes, you see, if you look at that, like in state,
and
the
so
Lagos
federal
State,
government
for
has
instance,
not paid some of this money.
Yes, you have that. Most of them, they complain about this. In Lagos State, it is happening and it will continue to happen. I know Lagos State about Lagos State more than any other state, but I think that, you see, it is not a big deal if you do that and the federal government has to pay you. If that is what you are demanding, and you say, listen, I don't need your loan, but pay me what you are owing me. That sounds logical to anybody else. Okay, look, I don't want a loan. Is this loan going to be again with interest rate? What is the interest rate? I mean, I don't think we've been told what the interest rate will be. Is it just free loan? And then you'll be able to say, okay, pay me back this, and I don't want to. Then that is logical. That is sensible for anyone to do. The point is, states have to continue to do that. Local governments have to continue to do that all around the world. It's something. But what I want to say is that if you begin to look at the country itself, and federal government has to come out every time to give these guys some money, each time they come around and say, we'll give you whatever condition we add, it is not going to go well in the long run. And that is why if we have to merge the state, let's merge them. But we will still have the same problem, because the same problem of those people from the other state you want to merge will come back to the existing state.
So what's the way out?
After elections, sorry please, after elections, before the election to the National Assembly, before you have the inauguration and all that, you have lawmakers going to what they call National Assembly Institute, where they are taught the nitty-gritties of what they are going to do. And I also remember that Governor Shomole, a couple of months ago, was talking about fiscal discipline, that if it was the past administration, if they had gone to the federal government for bailout, they would be lectured on fiscal responsibility and fiscal discipline. Perhaps that is what is lacking. Is it possible to have some kind of institute for governors that when if you won an election, these are the requirements. You must go through this and public certified feat to run a state. You see,
I think a lot of people have said that before you contest election, they have to go for psychiatric tests, and a lot of things have been said about that. There's no point for us to have another institute for governors, because these guys were supposedly to be educated people. There's a standard. You have the age limit, you have the standard of education, you have all those things. And like I said, you need a good team, and you need a good leader to lead a team. So the most important thing is generating IGR is just to make profit. I remember there's a state, there's a local government somewhere in Germany. This man made so much money for the local government, and he said, look, those citizens, those residents of that local government, they shouldn't need to pay tax for the next 6 months or 1 year, because he has made so much, and he gave it out to the people because he thought that was, their dividend for paying tax, for doing the right thing. And you know what he said? But if you don't live in this local government for the past, in the past 2 years, you can't be part of it. That means you have not contributed to it. You see, these are the things. You need people to be creative. And there's another one. When the roads were bad during the winter, you know what he said? The federal government said, look, there was no money for that, and he has to buy all these things to repair the roads. He deliberately said on YouTube and said, look, I need people to fund this road. And if you give me money, whatever, there's a limit, and say, look, you have to close this pothole. I'll put your name there, that this pothole was sponsored by Ugoshi.
So, and speaking of that,
yes.
I recall a street somewhere, Kosoko, around Ojudu there.
Bad during the winter. You know what he said? The federal government said, look, there was no money for that, and he has to buy all these things to repair the roads. He deliberately said on YouTube and said, look, I need people to fund this road. And if you give me money, whatever, there's a limit, and say, look, you have to close this pothole. I'll put your name there, that this pothole was sponsored by Ugoshi.
So, and speaking of that,
yes.
I recall a street somewhere, Kosoko, around Ojudu there, where, the residents are actually building the roads by themselves, providing interlocking stones and all of that. But should that really be happening?
Yeah, it can. It can. It happens everywhere. I tell you what, sometimes we look at Europe as a place where such things don't happen. I tell you what, in a local government where I stay in Germany, where I was staying, you have Environmental Sanitation Day. where people actually come to clean the environment. So, but you will think, oh, no, Oyibo people, they won't do this kind of a thing. No, they do it. It's just being creative. If you can get the people, if you can get the people of the street to manage their street, be it, but give them an incentive. You know, so that they will continue to do something more.
And what should those incentives be?
In various forms. You can give them incentives in various forms, maybe in tax rebate. If a company should say, look, I'm going to tar the whole road, give him a tax rebate for doing that, maybe 2% or 3% or whatever. And then the more companies will come out and say, look, let's do this because it's part of our corporate social responsibility. That's why I can't understand why everything has to be done by government. And you don't understand the fact that it's so painful. You don't need to borrow everything to repair all the streets. People are ready to, support the government, but they are just afraid that, look, what are we getting from the government? What are we getting back? People want to say, look, I want to get something back from the government. And if you say, like Lagos State will say, look, on a very popular holiday, this BRT thing, you can take it free. So
Which
people
is
just
what's
go out.
been
So
happening.
give them something back and give something back to the people. They will want to do something more. I think we need to think about that. But above that, let all the governors be more creative. Let them be very disciplined. And traveling around the world is not just to say, look, I want investors to come to this country. That is not going to solve the problem. We have a lot of people who can, invest in all the states, but we are not enticing them. We are not encouraging them. I wouldn't want to go to a state whereby you say you have zero IGR, and then one day a company is there, you say, look, he has to pay about 20% of his income. I mean, nobody wants to do that.
Okay, Joe Femi Dagunro, developmental economist, talking to us this morning on the state of affairs of the states, where 15 states may just go bankrupt. We hope that doesn't happen. Thank you so much for joining us.
They can't go bankrupt because the bankruptcy law does not allow a state to go bankrupt.
To declare bankruptcy, anyway.
Yes, so if you declare bankruptcy, you know what it means. That means they can come and just take over the state. That means they can come and take over the houses. And so that will not happen unless, exactly, unless we have to
subsist,
now pass a law that will allow state to actually go for bankrupt.
Okay, and that's where we have to leave it. Thank you so much, Joe Femi Dagunro, once again.
I appreciate it.